after the investor selects the trade button and the initial time that they come in, they go through the subscriber agreement. But so after they hit the trade button, they're going to be directed to log into the Rialto Markets Alternative Trading System, or ATS. Now that the investor is in the Rialto ATS, they will be taken to the landing page where they can access their profile and key account details, such as their account holdings and cash on hand, as well as recent issuers and securities of interest to the investor. Here, the investor selects CitiZena, the CitiZena security, which expands to provide the investor with information relevant to make the investment decision. There are 3 different sections. There's the overview, which we're in right now, which has a video, a management bios, as well as regulatory filings, which we're scrolling down right now, and links, and then media, different media clippings. We also, if we scroll back up, we can get to price information. So as we've heard in earlier panels, price discovery is absolutely critical. And the price information section provides an information on price history, as well as a liquidity score. If you scroll down a little bit more, there's the liquidity score, as well as history of different transactions that have taken place on the platform. And there are also some media clippings as well, and links to different articles. Yeah, if you continue scrolling. Now, the last tab that we've got is the research tab. So we had a panel on research. This is still an area that we're working on expanding. We understand that it's absolutely fundamental and it's still early days. For the moment, we have additional information right here on technical documents, but we are still continuing to expand this area, and we plan to supplement it with external research. So if the investor wants to purchase shares, they can purchase shares by clicking on an available order. You can see available orders over by the ticket that's available right there. So they can click on available order, which populates the order ticket. They can review the order. That pops up the confirmation. They hit confirm, and then it's displayed as a confirmation, which then brings them back to the landing page and displays that header at the top of their screen. It's important to note that Rialto provides access to banking rails for investors, and anyone purchasing shares will have pre-funded that purchase. So as you can see, if you hit the transaction exactly, funds were deposited in 4 different transactions, fiat transactions. So we provide all of the different banking rails. In the same way, if an investor wants to sell their holdings, Rialto will check with the transfer agent. If we go back exactly to that order ticket, there we go. If we go back to that order ticket, if an investor wants to sell their holdings, Rialto will check with the transfer agent to ensure the securities are freely tradable and unencumbered prior to allowing the sell order. Specifically in the case of Corconex, we connect with the core chain to confirm these details. To input a sell order, the investor fills in the order ticket with the number of shares and limit price, or the investor can interact with an existing sell order as is seen here. Hello, I'm so excited to be here. My name is Shari Noonan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Rialto Markets. Rialto Markets works on bringing private markets to the public, to everyone. And we are a FINRA registered broker-dealer and an alternative trading system.
Hello, 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 Shari. You know, it's so much fun because, all right, so you're talking and I'm like, God, those blue eyes are just stunning. like they just popped. I don't know what kind of lighting you have going on there, but your blue eyes were just like, oh, Shari's talking to me. She's talking directly to me. Well, so I have to say thank you very much for being here. So the podcast started a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, when the pandemic started. And as a small business owner, obviously we all lost a lot of business. A lot of things happened, and so a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon of podcasts. I worked in the media for 10 years, so it wasn't like it was like a big difference for me being from radio to the podcast. But it's what I'm enjoying the most is meeting new people that I would have never, ever, ever met. And my interns are now in charge of finding, they're like find badasses. Go and find some badasses, and then I'll talk to them. Like, do you want us to do any research? I'm like, no. They have to be a small business. I go, they have to be legitimate. I go, and they just have to have a story. And she's like, and they're like, you don't want to know anything about them. I'm like, no, because I will have literally close to an hour with you. So we're gonna we're gonna just jump in here. So
that's exciting.
Shari, where are you? Where are you located? And then let's talk about, I want people to understand who little Shari was. So it's always the better way to, because I was like, I want to know about your past. And everyone starts like, well, in college. I'm like, no, I want even more. So where are you located? And then tell us a story of like little Shari.
Thank you. This is so exciting. So the company is located in New York City. I lived in New York City up until a year ago exactly, when I packed my family in the car and we drove down to just south of Jacksonville Beach. It's called Ponte Vedra Beach. And we've got some family in the area and we set up shop here and have been here ever since.
Well, I just have to know, I mean, it could be an absolute like, duh, Jodi, I can't even believe you're asking this question. New York was the hotbed of the pandemic. I mean, it was scarier than scarier on so many different levels. I have a lot of relatives. So first generation born in America, 90% of my American relatives live in New York, doctors, lawyers, et cetera. They were in it. And so I saw the fear firsthand. Did you leave because of that or did you leave for other reasons?
We left because of that. It was really, I have two boys. Now they're 13 and 14. But at the time when the pandemic started, we were, as everyone else in New York City was, we were confined to our apartment. And it was really challenging. In the 3 months from March until the end of June, the boys went outside twice. So they went into the fresh air twice. And I thought, this is going to be going on for some time. I want to get them to a place where at least they can go out to a yard. At least we can have, some other place besides their room that they can be in. So yeah, that's really what it was.
All right. So we're definitely going to dig back into the family life, but we want to start with you. So, all right, now back to who's little Shari.
So we'll go all the way back to the beginning.
All the way back. Let's just like literally, not like you don't have to be in your mom's belly back, but all the way back.
I love it. Actually, no one knows this about me, but everyone knows this. I was born in Kansas City. I was born in Kansas City, Missouri, Midwest, and very middle class upbringing. My mom was a teacher. My dad worked at Sears in the warehouse at Sears. But I was born without a hip socket. That's what no one knows. And so I was in a cast for the first 2 years of my life, a body cast.
Wait. So, see, again, this is why I don't like doing research. And I love this. A hip socket. I'm just like in my mind, I'm just trying to figure this out where you're looking at someone's hip. Is center, right, left? I mean, I'm trying to visualize it. I should know this, but I don't.
It was my right hip. And now it happens every once in a while. We actually have a friend who had a baby with the same thing, but now medicine has advanced so much, they just your bones are so soft, they just form it. So I was in a body cast for 2 years and they were forming my hip socket.
Were they changing out? I mean, bless, we'll call your mom and dad, because teacher, working at Sears, have a daughter in a full body cast. Are they changing out the cast every couple of weeks? I mean, are you growing inside of it? How did that work?
It was a plaster body cast that weighed about 40 pounds. So my mom would just lay me down in the back of the station wagon and drive.
And the thing is, like, you're looking at pictures, but you don't even remember it.
Oh no, I don't remember anything. My mother was probably the most scarred of anyone. But I was really fortunate because they had just begun doing, if you've ever had a baby, the doctors will do something with their legs where and basically that's what they're testing. They're testing to make sure you've got
the rotation.
The rotation, and I didn't. So that's the littlest me you could possibly know about.
You know what? I like that, because you know what? You may not remember it, but this has been part of your life because they remember it and they just kept, and I'm sure you've heard that story 10,000 times.
Well, I used to get caught under chairs because I was, using my arms to get around, and in the kitchen, I would get caught in between all the chairs. So yeah, there's a lot of pictures of me doing that. But so that's the very youngest, but I had a very, very, wonderful childhood in Kansas City. It was very normal, from a normal perspective, what you think of. And grew up, went to Marquette University. That's where I went to college. Absolutely loved it, really, because they let me choose my own path. So I
Oh.
wanted to spend a lot of time overseas. I don't know why, but I did. And so I went to Turkey my freshman year for a week or 2 weeks. I spent a semester in France my sophomore year. And then my senior year, they actually helped me get an internship in Poland, in Warsaw, Poland. And I spent about 8 months in Warsaw, Poland, working for the first cellular phone company.
Wait,
So,
pause for a second.
yeah.
Kansas kid ends up being on a plane all the time. Well, I mean, what did your parents think? Because I mean, were they travelers? And if they weren't, what were their yeah, you're saying no. So like, what were their thoughts about that? And also your friends. I mean, your friends that you went to high school with, and then all of a sudden you're going from place to place to place. How did people perceive you at this point? Where are you not just content with what you are, what you're doing, and where you're from, or are you planning to change the world? But what are you going to be doing with that? And what was your major?
Yeah, my major was accounting and international business. So
Okay.
and honestly, I came upon accounting because I asked the counselor, what's the best job to get, what's the best major to get a job? And that's how I became an accountant. Um, so, my parents really didn't travel. My dad really wanted to see the United States before he went overseas. So they never even visited me in France or Poland. And to their credit, I was always doing these crazy things. I mean, 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave for Poland, I got a job in Budapest. And I called them and said, I'm not coming home for summer. I'm going to spend the summer in Budapest. They were just like, whatever, but whatever you need to do. So to their credit, they were always, very accommodating and kind of letting me do what I wanted to do. And it wasn't that I didn't like Kansas City. I think Kansas City is a great place. It was just I knew I wasn't going to school in Missouri. I ended up in Wisconsin, and I knew after I graduated, all of the jobs I applied for, I said, I'll take a job anywhere, but
Yeah.
not Kansas City and not Milwaukee or Chicago, not the Midwest.
Mhm.
It was all about just experiences and having different experiences.
Nice. Very, very nice. Do you have siblings? And
I do.
and I did again those blue eyes. You're like you just let your eyes talk before you do. It's kind of funny. So your siblings as well. What do your siblings do? And how do they intertwine with what you have started? Like as you started developing, were you the trailblazer? Where like score? If Sherry's doing, it, we can do it too. Or are they the ones that are like, nope, nope, and nope?
So I have a sister, she's 5 years older. So she was always, ahead of me in everything, but very, very supportive again. So I was really lucky when I was really doing anything, she was very supportive. She is raised two beautiful children. And so that's, she lived in Seattle and just moved to Omaha, Nebraska with her husband's job. Her husband, my brother-in-law, worked for Anheuser-Busch for many years. So it was one of those jobs where every 3 years you're moving.
Best commercials ever, by the way. Still to this day, best commercials ever.
Exactly. So my whole family, I've got to say, was incredibly supportive, but thought I was out of my mind.
I love it when while you're doing things and they're like, I got your back. Oh my God, what is she doing? This is so odd. Oh my God, great job.
That's pretty much exactly what it was all about.
So how did you get to so now you're traveling around the world. You graduate with an international finance degree, or is it a double major or a singular major?
It was accounting, and then it was called a specialization. I think they were just creating new things when I went to school. But it was a specialization in international business, so it wasn't a double major.
Okay. And so you graduate, what happens now? So like from graduation to the start of your company, walk us through that.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I moved to New York City. I didn't know anybody. I moved to New York City and I started working for a company called KPMG, it's an accounting firm. And I was really fortunate again. I got moved from audit, not that people don't love audit, but I didn't, from audit into the consulting division. And so it was an amazing job because basically for 4 years, I got to go into companies and they'd be like, look at all this stuff that's wrong with us. Help us fix it. It was fantastic. But after 4 years, I decided I didn't want to be a career consultant. It was really interesting. I learned a lot, but I didn't want to do it for the rest of my life. So a headhunter called And I said, well, I need to start practicing interviewing anyway.
Mhm.
So I went on the job interview, and lo and behold, it was for a company called Instinet, which was one of the first electronic trading companies. They were called ECNs, or electronic communications networks, back in the 90s. And I fell in love with the people, with the company, with everything they were trying to do. We were, we were moving equities from voice to electronic. It was very underdoggy, in the beginning. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. So I went over there. And then by the early 2000s, all the big firms said, well, I guess this is happening, so we're going to buy people. So I joined a division of Goldman Sachs. Goldman had just purchased a company called Spearleads and Kellogg. They had an electronic trading platform, and I worked on that integration, which was really interesting. And then I went to the mothership, as I call it. I went to Goldman and became a sales trader, which is basically, when you see those pictures of people at desks picking up the phone and doing that. So I did that for 3 years. I also had my 2 sons during those 3 years. And it also was the credit crisis. It was 2007 and 2008 during that time. 2010, I went to Deutsche Bank, and I was the COO for global electronic trading. And then I became the COO for global equity derivatives. And then I became the COO for global equity trading. And that was so much fun. That was a ton of travel, a ton of problem solving, really great people. And then in 2016, I said, let's jump off the cliff, and started a company with 2 co-founders, one of whom is my husband. The other one is someone that I met back at Instinet that I'd always kept in touch with. And we started Rialto Markets.
So much to like, you just gave me the largest onion, and I'm like, I'm going to start peeling it away. Okay, so hi, Midwestern girl with all these big companies. Hello. The name brands, those logos on your resume, check, check, and check. Bravo. That's awesome. That's phenomenal in every single way. When you decided to, you were like, auditing. I love auditing. Not in regards to the finance, but the auditing in itself is the essence of problem solving. What am I dealing with before I actually fix the problem is always, for us, we are 3 steps. Audit, what's your goal? Let's fix it. Those are the 3 things. And when you not liking it, I think it's more so because, and this is what I'm hearing, and tell me if I'm right or wrong. You didn't like audit where most people would like audit. You didn't like audit because you saw the answer very quickly, where like, all right, now I know how to do this. I want to get to the next step of auditing. Where there's people that just stick to it and this is what they do. You're like, but there's so much more. There's more to the story, and I want to be part of that story. Am I kind of?
Yes. And because people don't like auditors, I always got stuck in like the back room with. My favorite was a toy company, and they put me in the warehouse in this room, and dog toys were falling on me in Jamaica, Queens. So yes, that will always stick out in my memory as a fond memory.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I get to audit from the comforts of my own home. Totally different.
Exactly. Well, no, I do agree with you. It's a great problem solving. And accounting, honestly, I sort of fell into accounting, but accounting is really great because if you don't know the numbers, you can hire people to do a lot of other things. But if you don't understand the numbers, you're going to have a really hard time.
No, absolutely. And also the numbers tell the story of your company. And I think that people just assume, oh no, I'll just get a marketing person. I'm like, no, where's your auditor? I want to know, your finances, not because I want to, I need to know your business, but it really shares a lot of a bigger story. There's different layers. And I think that people just take it for granted. And so I understand what you do. I love what you do. So this is a great thing in regards of, again, in regards of your expertise. The value that you have is so huge, and people really, they come to you when they're in trouble. They come to you during tax time. They come to you they don't come to you for strategy, because they don't realize or understand that what you do for them now will help them well into the future. So I get it. And we're going to try to get more people to get it. Why did you decide to go into business with your husband? Because one of the biggest things that I mean, either you start out where, I don't know, I mean, I interviewed a couple that were they're in Switzerland. She runs the business, he does the PR. I have a couple that, well, he runs they're in Africa. He runs the business. I go, but she's the one that actually does the operation. So once they're in, they never see him again, and she does all of the operations for the partnership. So what was that? Yay, you know what? Let's both jump off the ship and let's both come in knowing that we're starting a business, and it's not the easiest thing to start your own business, and we're taking a lot of risks with our family. What was that conversation like? Was it a you side, his side, and then you brought into the third element of the business?
So we had been talking about it for a long time. And originally when Rialto Markets started, we wanted to tackle, so my background was electronic trading.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was looking for other markets that had a lot of inefficiency and a lot of friction in them, and really working on that. So by 2016, equities was electronic. There were a lot of other products that I had worked on, either electronifying or making more standardized. But fixed income, specifically corporate bonds, were very over the phone still. Mm-hmm. So, and Rob was working in pricing high yield bonds. So we thought, well, this is a great complement. He will work on the actual pricing algorithm in a product area, and I will run the business. Yep. We were extraordinarily fortunate because Joel, our third co-founder, really is sort of the complete package in terms of he's very methodical and thoughtful, and in his own right had an amazing network on Wall Street. So really the three of us I think it was successful because we didn't do the same thing. It wasn't like we were all three salespeople saying, okay, now let's figure out how we, do the strategy or do something else. We each had our own quadrant of the business, and that's been really successful. And honestly, any important decision we all three talk about and come to a decision. And it's also helpful because we talk 24/7. We're always talking about the business.
The boys must enjoy that a lot.
My boys know way too much about private markets. My younger son will say, Regulation A, is that about Regulation A? I'm like, oh my gosh, going and doing Minecraft right now.
I was going to say, I can imagine how it is for when he's talking to his friends and they're like, what are you talking about? What are you saying?
Yeah, it's funny.
So who is your best client? And I go, and when they walk into you, so like I walk into you, what is the pain point that I'm dealing with right now that I would actually approach you? I found you, I heard about you, you did marketing, you're on the podcast, so I now know you. What is the biggest problem that the number one client or the average client would have? And who is your best client? And what are 2 or 3 steps of how do you solve or how do you help them solve their goals?
Absolutely. So we have 2 businesses. So we work in a very highly regulated industry in financial services, and being a broker dealer, we help issuers. So private companies, that what's so fascinating and what we love about what we do now is there was really this convergence we saw. So we started in corporate bonds, and then we saw actually private markets in general are massively inefficient in the US. And at the same time, there were lots of new I won't call it legislation, but the SEC was really trying to solve for how do you get retail investors, normal investors, into private companies, because what they were seeing is by the time these companies were going public, they weren't growth companies anymore. So people, normal average investors couldn't make money on at that point. So they were trying to figure out ways to, within a regulated framework, allow the public to invest in private companies. So that's what we find so exciting is there's this conversion of, a very large market, very inefficient, new market structure changes coming about, and then technology. That's kind of what my thesis has been throughout my career since I started in financial services. So companies will come to us and they're usually raising money through one of these new exemptions from registration, either Regulation A or Regulation CF, which is crowdfunding. So Regulation CF is regulation crowdfunding. You could raise up to $5 million every single year from the public, every 12 months. And Regulation A, now you can raise up to $75 million every year from the public. So
Okay.
it's fascinating. It's a really interesting new tool for private companies to have. So, it opens up even more avenues in terms of capital formation. So people would come to us on those two items to act as the broker dealer, because there are certain states that need a broker dealer, one.
Mhm.
Two, we do all of the anti-money laundering and know your client checks, so that you've got all your record keeping and everything's done correctly. And then three, we assist with operational things like outreach for people who come in and then they decide not to purchase. We'll call and see if there's anything that we can do to help them complete that investment. So that's the first reason people come to us. But the second reason, I think, is the transformational one, but it's a longer evolution, which is our alternative trading system. So I've built, between me and Joel, we built about 9 alternative trading systems. They look very much like exchanges, but they are different than exchanges. But basically, they have the same function. They match up buyers and sellers. And we got approval to operate our alternative trading system across all private markets in the form of digital securities. All digital securities are blockchain-based securities. You don't really need to know, just like I have no idea how my phone works. You don't need to know the ins and outs of that unless you want to know the ins and outs of that. But so what we do is these issuers help raise money, and then all issuers in the private market that have, securities outstanding can come onto our ATS and offer their investors a way to monetize, a way to sell. Because that's the problem with private markets. There's an on-ramp, you can buy them, but you can never sell them until the company goes public or until they sell the company to someone. So we really offer that monetization. And we think by offering the monetization of your investment, it's going to make the market that much larger. So I'll pause.
Yes. I'm happy that see, this is good. You're good. I'll pause for Jodi to ask questions. I'm writing. I don't want to forget certain things. So I'm going to go to the layman low-hanging fruit question where, are you competing with the Fidelities of the world? If I have investments with a Fidelity, and do I work with you with Fidelity, or am I leaving Fidelity and I'm coming to you? And I'm using Fidelity as an example. Obviously, any of the large companies that you're investing your dollars with, people that are savvy about investing your dollars. So am I is it complementary or is it a stretch apart?
It's complementary. I love that you asked that question. It's complementary. Really, this is a new way of investing. So when people think of, public retail investors investing in private companies, you think of crowdfunding, Kickstarter, right? But what's been happening, because the rules have been changing, is companies that are much more mature are now utilizing these tools, these capital formation tools. And from the first part of our business, from the primary issuance, we don't compete with a Fidelity at all. They wouldn't be offering that to the public. From the secondary transactions, they usually won't be holding those securities themselves. So we would work with them, and then we also work with like IRA providers, so you can invest in a company in your IRA. So we really connect that ecosystem in.
Okay. A layer to that is the younger generation are very savvy because of technology. They are not going the old school route of mom and dad always had a financial advisor. Younger people are focusing on, I'm going to Google it, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to invest my dollars here. Where do you fit in to the generation of the baby boomers / the greatest generation always had a financial advisor? And then when I grew up, I took on mom and dad's financial advisor, to the I'm savvy, it's not that hard. Mr. and Mrs. Google have everything out there. I'll just do my due diligence of homework. Where do you fall into that?
We actually handle both. So most of the investors are individual investors coming in, just like you said, they're do it yourself, right? And the IRA links that we have in are actually self-directed IRAs. Okay. So people can actually self-direct their funds into this IRA to then grow. And then when they retire, they can receive those funds. So that's our base. However, we're now integrating in with what's called registered investment advisors, which is exactly the financial advisor that you talk about, to help the RIAs invest the portion that should be allocated to private markets in the best way possible. To one, show them different options, and two, to be able to monetize that when they need to, for to reallocate the portfolio.
We are dealing with younger people that are investing by themselves, doing their homeworks. You're seeing, even just like when you're looking at GameStop, clearly people are trying to figure out, how do I make my money? I mean, I'm making money, but how am I making my money grow is this big, huge essence, because there's no university of getting your finances in order in any school.
Crazy.
And you know what? It's shocking where earlier this morning, I said that to a client, where I feel like in your lifetime, you should work in politics, you should work as a wait staff, and you should work and you should be in a sport. Those three right there get you into that essence of, I think I could be a walking functional human being, because I was in sports, team player. I waited tables. I know how to take care of people, and I know how to manage my personality. And the whole entire, what was the last one?
Politics.
Oh yeah, that one. You got to really know how to talk it without getting angry about it. But the finance part, it was one of those things where we don't talk about religion, we don't talk about finance, and we don't talk about politics. I talk about all of those things because it's not that I want to know how much money you make, but I will get word of mouth advice, and I'm more likely to take the word of mouth advice well before something that a person I'm paying as a financial advisor would be. So how do you actually communicate with an audience that is just like, I don't trust? We have Ponzi schemes out there. We have people steal. Like, we have so many things out there because the media has, full disclosure, I worked in the media for 10 years. We literally have found ways to get the stories to the forefront. And now that forefront has gotten to people where I go, the wall is up, I'm scared, don't talk to me, I'm going to put my money right back underneath the mattress like my grandma did, she was fine. Yep. So how are you able to communicate? Because this is a subject that's so dicey with so many people, to talk about their monies, talk about their pitfalls. I mean, you're seeing a lot of individuals getting scammed where, oh my God, like, grandma just got a call that Sally and Johnny are in jail in Tibet. I'm like, no, I'm down the street what are you talking about? I'm not in Tibet. Why would you give them money? So how are you dealing with all these? The media is putting so much negativity in the forefront in the financial world, and you're right in it. And now we're talking more and more about the monopoly money. I mean, we're going into the blockchain. So you have so much on your plate, and there's so much noise out there. How are you gaining clientele to come in there, trust you, to make sure that they have a future that they will be very happy with? That was a very loaded question. Did you see that?
Absolutely. No, I love it. So first, I'll say we do a lot of education. So a lot of webinars, seminars, education. Second of all, I think of us as, although we're a broker dealer and we're under the auspice of a broker dealer, the SEC has really, done a remarkable job at being able to open up this market for individual investors. And so for that, I give them a lot of credit, because I know it can be a little bit terrifying. But the fact that these regulations fall under the SEC's realm means that there are disclosures, there are audits that need to take place, there are regular reporting requirements that are required for these companies, for these issuers. So these issuers should know. I mean, when I first got into digital securities, I sort of was in the midst of the whole initial coin offering, ICO craze. This is not that at all. These are regulated US securities, and the issuers have to be aware of that prior to embarking on this, that you're going to have to open up the kimono. You're going to be under securities regulation. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, our company is really providing the infrastructure, meaning on the issuance side, when you're issuing securities and getting funding initially, we simply provide all of the infrastructure for you to launch a site, have the payment rails, have the invest button and the payment rails and your subscription agreement, all of that on there, but it's all branded as your company. So that which is a different approach than a lot of crowdfunding portals that you see. So you see a lot of crowdfunding portals, you'll go on and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies. We're really geared towards more mature companies that have already established their brand, don't want to be associated with thousands of other companies, want their own website and want to be able to manage it, drive their traffic and marketing dollars just to that website.
Nice.
That's how because you're going to spend a lot of money in marketing dollars, right? And you don't want to drive them to a funding portal, you want to drive them to yourself. So that's really what we've created. On the secondary side, we are regulated as an alternative trading system. And so you can think of it as we're regulated quite heavily by our self-regulatory organization, FINRA. And the SEC doesn't regulate us, but they really regulate everyone, right? So I think, we're at a brand new, we're in the first or second inning of how this is all going to play out. But what I love, and this is to your point, is that we're giving both companies and investors tools to be able to have a better financial future. You have to work at it. Both parties have to, it's more work than just going to a venture capital firm and getting money. But it allows you to really build your capital formation stack in a much more thoughtful way and not be rushed to do an IPO or rushed to do a transaction that you're only doing because of the capital or because your investors want to see a return. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. It definitely does. It's so, so it answers the question. It's definitely overwhelming because again, it's just like people walk in and they're like, all right, I don't know where to go, where to start. So 3 major red flags you see when someone says, I want to start investing. And I mean, I shouldn't say 3, but I love 3. I live in the world of 3. And I think that 3 things are easy for people to remember. But when someone is saying, I am ready, or I have not paid attention to it before, or the big fear is I'm retiring soon and I want to do so much more and I don't think I have enough money to retire. So how do I educate myself to start? Once I'm in it, am I the person that should be looking every day, obsessing, calling you? Oh my God, what's going on? And do I have enough?
Yeah. So now I'm getting outside my realm of expertise. So I will say that as a prelude to this. But in terms of, educating yourself, I do think there are a ton of webinars, books, seminars to be able to educate yourself. And there are markets. I really break down markets into 3 different types of markets. There are speculative markets, in which case you should just put only money that you can afford to completely lose in speculative markets. There are trading markets, and trading markets are, very liquid, easy to get in, easy to get out. Not saying that's what you should do, but trading markets. And then there are investing markets. Private market companies are investing markets. You should not assume there's a ton of liquidity, and it's not meant to be an instrument that you come in and churn, which has bad connotations, but I mean, trade quickly. So you should really be thinking you're putting your money there because you believe in the company you're investing in, you believe in the management of the company you're investing in, you believe in the vision. But it's there to sit for a while. What our alternative trading system allows you to do is actually to try and sell it. Should you need to sell it, because people, and especially for not just investors in these companies, but for employees. A lot of employees of these companies, they get paid largely in stock, and they need to send their kids to school. They need to buy a house, buy a car, new boiler, whatever you want. So that's really what we've set this alternative trading system up to do. It's not to create a fast-paced casino-like experience at all.
I'm going to switch gears here for a little bit. March 2020. The world starts the end of February, chattering. Beginning of the March, chattering, getting to talking. And then in the middle of March, holy crap, people are screaming, crying, running. What was it like for you then? How was your year? And how is it now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was, to be fair, as soon as the lockdown occurred, it was really assessing with my husband, our family situation, what were the things that we needed to think about and do, and how we were going to, it was sort of secure the family,
Mhm.
secure the company, secure yourself. And
Did you
so
put yourself last?
I did. You really should put on your,
Oh,
you should.
we will discuss that later, but go ahead, keep going.
I know. So it was a lot of just making sure my kids could continue going to school, had everything they needed to go to school, were set up, that we had the apartment set up, that we had a process for getting food, going to the grocery store, all of that. That was really the most important thing. And then really closely intertwined was making sure our employees had the same, right? That
Mhm.
the employees, they didn't need anything, that everything was working for them, getting them equipment they needed to have to work from home.
Mhm.
That was really the second biggest item. And then honestly, I mean, it was last, but then, just making sure I could, because everyone knows this, when you're in close quarters with your entire family and you have no break, your entire routine's been disrupted. So
Mhm.
how do you get back to some sense of self-care? And then we moved, so that was another disruption.
Mhm.
And I probably, as a mother, you're always thinking about your kids and what can you do for them first, and how you get them set up first. So yeah, and then today, to be fair, the company's doing amazing today. We really, it's surprised all of us how easily we've been able to continue to do our work. Most of the people, we were the only people living in New York City. Everyone else in the company commuted in. They loved not commuting, 2 hours a day, got that back. I got to spend a lot more time with my kids. And so, and the company's grown, our actual business has picked up because of, I think there are just seismic shifts going on in general, at all levels of our society.
Going back to you being third on your list of things to take care of, um, we are in a historic time of our lives. Let's knock on wood, let's knock on our head. Like, I don't care what we're going to knock on, that we do not experience it again in our lifetime, or even children experience it in their lifetime. Um, you are taking care of so many people. How did you take care of yourself? Because you're getting up, you're looking for, I mean, you're finding a new home. Uh, you have teenage, like preteens. I mean, teenagers. You have like you're they're not teenagers. You have a husband who is your co-founder. You have another co-founder. You have a lot on your shoulders during a historical time, and you put yourself third. How was that in regards of not having those days when you just like lose your mind? Because how do you keep your cool while taking care of so many?
Yeah, and I will say I'm really fortunate because my husband really, it's a partnership, which helps a lot. Helps a lot. So I'm really lucky that he stepped in a lot of times and handled things, because I just couldn't have done it all. It's a lot. People talk a lot about how this event has really put working women back. And I've seen it, I used
Yeah.
to get up and go to work, and now I get up and I make the kids breakfast and I make their lunch and I get them ready for school. Not they're old enough to get ready for school, but make sure they get out the door for
Yep.
school. So it's a lot of extra tasks, and I really had to reframe it in my mind to, you know what, I worked so much when they were younger and I was traveling overseas, that this is a great opportunity to spend more time with them. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like condensed, it was sort of turning that into a positive of it, which it is,
Yeah.
having a ton of condensed family time. I did have some moments where I needed to step back and just, you know, reset myself. I did a lot of yoga. I did a lot of biking. Once I got down here, we would go to the beach
Nice.
and bike to the beach. But I think it's important, especially because when you're in the fog of war, right? When you're in the midst of it, you don't
Mhm.
even realize that you need something. It's not until you can kind of either crash and burn, or you get the opportunity to step back and take a breath and say, wait a second, I need to have this. So slowly but surely, I'm getting better at it.
I think that's one of the things that people need to hear more from their peers, that the small business peers, that knowing when to step back. You can't do it all. I mean, no one can do it all. But admitting that you can't do it all and taking a step back is huge. So I'm so happy that you just said that. There are so many people that during the pandemic, they realize, and you said it, I don't have to commute. I'm working better at home. I'm more efficient with my time. My family doesn't have to wait for me to come home, throw meals. I mean, the meals can be done in between calls. Oh, by the way, I can use my own bathroom. I can just use, I can use my own stuff while I'm in between calls and working. There are a lot of people that didn't get furloughed, didn't lose their jobs, but they just don't like their jobs. They realize more and more, you know what, I've been doing this for such a long time, and I did get to spend a lot of time with my family, pros and cons. But I really I don't enjoy my job. I don't have that micromanager over my shoulder every 2 seconds, but I'm kind of scared to start my own thing. What would you say to those individuals that are looking for some moment of pause where, what should I do? How do I do it? How do I start? What was that aha moment that both you and your husband had where we are jumping ship?
It's really funny. I've been asked this before, and it honestly was a leap of faith. It was a leap of faith with a cushion. Because I just felt moved. I felt like it was something I had to do. And it was really deeply important. You know, at the time I was at a very big firm. I had a really good job, but I didn't have that much of an impact. It was sort of like I was pushing, and then I would have a setback, and pushing. And so, you know, it really, I wanted a job. I wanted to build a company where you could have an impact and you could own that impact, right? And so that's what I say to people who are thinking about it is, you know, first of all, build your cushion, because nothing's ever going to go as planned. So figure out your plan to build your cushion. And what I mean by that is your financial cushion. Your financial cushion to be able to do it. If you can do a side hustle, great. I wasn't in the position to do that. I had to leave my job. So I couldn't have started this as a side hustle. But if you can do that, that's fantastic. Build your cushion, get an understanding of what you want to do, and know it's not going to be that. Whatever you leave your company to go do, it's not going to be that. You will pivot, you will shift, and that's the beauty of what you're creating. That's the whole beauty of it. So just get comfortable with being in uncomfortable, and take time for yourself. It wasn't, some of the best insights I had was in the middle of yoga, you know, when I wasn't thinking about something. So realize that if you don't take that time for self-care, you're not going to build the biggest vision that you can possibly build.
I love the fact that actually, I want to ask you one other question to follow up on that one. But I do love that you talk about the cushion. People just assume I'm just going to jump in, and then that's number one. But the best part of what you said in that paragraph was, it's not going to be the way that you wanted it to be. So when you walk in, and I started my company 12 years ago when the world was the last time. And I was sitting in an MBA class, and the president of the school came out to all the students and said, like, we need you to go live with your capstones because the world has imploded. We don't know what's going on. We don't know how to explain it. And oh yeah, by the way, with an MBA, you're overqualified. And I'm like, no, capstone was for a grade. What do you mean I'm overqualified? I've been working my entire life. And so you're hearing this and you're like, where do I go? And the capstone was for a grade. And it was like one thing. And I mean, I think it was probably year 6 when I'm like, this is what we do. This is who we target. And I mean, it was just like this, shifting. And people go in with full conviction of, I want to do this only. And when it goes wrong, they're broken. They're absolutely broken. So thank you very much for saying that out loud, where shifting, pivot, whatever word you want to use, that it will not be what it is until, I always say, it won't be the way you want it to be until it's done. It's like I bought a house. I bought a fixer upper. Once everything's fixed, you want to move.
That's it.
Yeah. You want
That's
to go
it.
somewhere else.
And I'll say the other thing, leaving a big corporate job specifically for those folks that are in big corporate jobs, it was very challenging for me. You know, I left and I sat down at my kitchen table day one, and you know, you're creating something from nothing. You know, I mean, it's very overwhelming. And it took me 3 months. I was, you know, calling people I used to work with. We'd go to lunch once a week, once every 2 weeks. And finally I said, I have to completely leave my old world, everyone I knew, and you know, take this skin off, put on a completely new skin of being an entrepreneur. But because I wasn't going to be successful, I was going to end right back
Wait,
up.
can you rewind a little bit? Because you're like, did you go to lunch to seek advice, or did you go to lunch because you missed the world?
I went to people would call me, and so I'd say, sure, let's grab lunch. And you know, and I felt like I had, you know, that sort of safety line back. And you really have to burn the ships. You have to burn the ships on the shore and just say, I'll see you later.
Not burn the bridge, burn the ships on shore. People will get confused by that. So I'm just telling you don't want to burn bridges. But you know,
not at all. In fact, it's funny, 5 years on, I have a lot of people I used to work with that sort of are saying, this is amazing. You know, it's kind of like I just disappeared from the face of the earth, and now I'm coming back. But it took that for me, because I felt like when I was keeping in touch, I was keeping that door open. And I really couldn't keep that door open and really go at my new venture fully.
What are the highs and the lows of having your own business?
There's so many of both, but you know, I would say the highs are when you create something and you've got the product market fit. That's just incredible. And you know, you're on the phone with the client and they're like, this is exactly what we need. I can't believe it's taken me so long to find you. You know, when, you know, our team, we have a world-class team. And when I get compliments about the team and just how amazing they are, which I know, you know, you're doing it right. And the other thing I'll say is, you know, I've stopped even reading about sort of these overnight sensations of companies that, you know, oh, they're a unicorn in 2 years. I'm just building a business. I'm just building a business one step at a time, you know, and so those are really the highs of what we do. The lows are, you know, there was a great quote from a woman I was on a panel with, and someone said, oh, you know, I'm thinking about quitting my job and starting a business. And she's like, do you have the intestinal fortitude? Like, do you have
honestly
to just do it? You know, you've got to really, you know, it's not that you have to believe in the product because it's going to ship. It's not, but can you stand there when you've got $50 in the bank account and not give in to the fear of whatever that fear is? It takes a lot. It takes a lot of grit and resilience.
But that would be part of the, whenever I'm on panels and I hear that, I'm like, the could have, would have, should have team, because I'm going to run a marathon on this date versus I'm thinking about running a marathon.
Yeah.
Because that date tells you you're working towards something, and you're now telling us out loud. So we're going to call you and we're going to be your accountability coaches. We're like, so how's that marathon training going? Versus I'm thinking about it. Well, I'm thinking about, you know, like marrying George Clooney after he divorces them all. I'm thinking about it.
That's right.
Will it happen is a whole different thing. What is happening? I mean, I shouldn't say what's happening, but where do you see the industry going because of the pandemic? So, I mean, again, 12 years ago, we were dealing with the recession. Everyone's doing good. The economy started going like gangbusters. And then all of a sudden we have this. Where do we go from here? The industry is constantly in flux. You're hearing the Fed's going, whether we're going to go up, we're going to go down, what's going to happen. People are panicking. Stocks are going up. There's so much noise out there. In your opinion, with what you're seeing, how do you simmer the noise? And where do you believe that we are going from this point on for individuals thinking about their personal future? Because I'm all about, if you don't literally put oxygen on you first, no one else is going to do it. We all know this. Anyone that's been on a plane, I should say, knows this. So what would you say in regards of what should the individual do and how is the future going to be played out? Because something else is going to happen. Don't know if it's the aliens. I don't know what it is, but something else will happen. How do we prepare?
I love that question. And I think one thing that the pandemic has showed us is people have really kind of taken a step back and taken inventory. And I love that there are people who are saying, if my company says I have to come in, I'm not going to. I'm going to find another job. And so, it really is this opening up, and it's sort of like we were all kind of, zombies walking around doing our day-to-day, getting our daily coffee. And the pandemic really shook everyone up. And it had made people take stock of what's really important and what do they really want to do and what do they want to do, for the rest of their life. And so I love the optionality that people are taking their future into their own hands and taking control of it. And I love that people are, becoming more educated from a financial standpoint and taking control of that. As long as you've got the foundation and you understand sort of what you're doing, please don't trade, options if you've never invested before. But as long as you do it responsibly, I think it's really just another way for individuals to take control of their future.
I think that was by far one of the. It was so well said in such a like butter. You just gave it to us like butter. Our time went by really fast. That's what happens. Like it flows. So I always tell people like, I need you to spend an hour with me. They're like, oh, I don't know if I have that time. And they're like, why is it over so quickly? It's over so quickly. This is why I've said that this will not be the last conversation. This was just the opening gate for us to understand who you are, where you came from, why you are who you are. And there will always be moments where I might just say, oh, Shari, there's something going in the news right now. I go, are you available to chat on with a couple of other people? But this forum is designed for small businesses. I want people to understand that corporate businesses, great. We love them, fantastic. I'm not gonna lie to you. Amazon spent way too much money on it last year. But the small businesses fuel our communities. It fuels the world. I mean, it's 85% of the world's economy are small businesses, and the people that are running it are great minds. We're not just like reading about it. We're actually doing it. We're living and breathing it every single day, and we're that content that people are not using. And so I want to make sure that people are hearing your voices whenever something comes up. I want people to hear your voices. So you're kind of stuck with me now. You're stuck with me. The second you guys say yes to me, you're stuck with me. So that being said, the last question I have for you is the question I ask of everyone. Again, no matter how many times we talk to each other, we will always end with this last question. And it's a twofer. So if you had a personal ask and a professional ask of anyone that's listening, the universe, your community, anyone in this podcast, what would they be? So 2 answers, please. A personal ask and a professional ask.
That is a great question. Okay, professional ask first.
Everyone does professional first.
I know because I'm trying to figure out personal, but professional ask, actually there's a lot. I know my personal ask now. Okay, professional ask is if you are a company and you're looking to raise money and you want to do it either under Regulation A or Regulation CF, please give us a call, give me a call. Would love to talk to you about it. Personal ask, I am a vegetarian, as is my son, and we have the hardest time finding, easy to make dinner meals. There you go. And 2 meat eaters in the house too, which don't get their meat. But
you know what? All right. So I like that one because so I live in a small town, 20,000 people. I'm in Massachusetts, coastal. I'm looking out my window, I look at the ocean. Best place to be for a pandemic. I'm very lucky. I'm a Caribbean kid, so I needed to be by the water no matter what. So I've lived here for close to 13 years. During the summer, we're part of a farm share. And so three of our surrounding towns support farms. And I love it because I know where my money is going. And during the summer, fall, I don't have to walk into a supermarket at all, which is amazing. I get things that I have no idea what they are. And so the vegetarian option becomes even better because I get these random things. I mean, I got garlic scraps. I'm like, what the hell is a garlic scrap? And I'm like Googling it. I'm like, but then all these recipes come up. Or I got scallions, and I know what scallions are. I use them in soup, but I got a lot of scallions in my box this time. So I made scallion pancakes. So I think that one of the things that makes it easier is if you're part of a farm share, it makes it, because if you go to the market, you get the same things over again, and something your mind is not going anywhere else. But if you're part of a farm share, or if you go to a farmer's market and get alternative things, then you automatically have to go and Google it, what it is, what flavors, and then you create these fun things. So I would say for me, for that one, don't just get recipes from the outside, but go and find alternative looking foods that force you to learn about the food. Yeah, force you to learn. Because I went to we have a supermarket called Super 88 here in Massachusetts. And Super 8 it's a Chinese supermarket. So I went in, I go field trip, because Wednesdays, I don't work on Wednesdays, so I go on learning field trips. So I go to random places and I learn Basketball Hall of Fame, which I forgot so many things. I mean, I went to a supermarket. So I just go to random things just to get the brain flowing, because this is where you learn more for yoga. I learn more when I'm away from the computer, when I'm away from work, and all these things start coming up. The things that I saw at the supermarket, I'm like, what the hell is that? And so I'm like blown away, where the fruits were the jackfruit, where like all these things started like just appearing, and I'm like taking pictures, and like, I'm gonna buy this. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna buy it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least it got me thinking of other things, and there was no meat involved. And I'm a meat eater. I will definitely, being a Caribbean kid, I will always go seafood first, meat second. But I mean, it was fun to be able to buy this stuff, make a meal, and it was filling, and there was no meat.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and then get the boys in the kitchen to cook something really cool.
They are up for it. My younger one especially will always help out in the kitchen.
Hey, sorry. So people could help you with that one, but I just gave you that.
Thank you. No, that's great. We have a CSA that I have not signed up for because we just moved here, but I'm gonna check it out after this.
Yeah, this is awesome. It was an amazing pleasure to talk to you.
It was fun. It was so fun to meet you.
I'm very happy that my intern found you. I'm very happy that I learned a lot of things from you, and I definitely know that I'm going to enjoy bringing you back in for a lot of resources. And we work with a lot of small businesses and a lot of startups that are always looking for funding, and the mentality is always friends, family, or the VCs and angels. This is an alternative where they probably don't know of. They wouldn't think about it, because they would go crowdfunding, but they'd go the Kickstarters and stuff like that. So I think that's amazing that you exist to be an alternative. And that's one of the things that I want to promote a lot more.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's been good. Bye.